So this first video will be for the second part of Chapter 4, Section 4.2, and this one deals with experiments and observational studies. The objectives are there and you can read through those. The observational study is a study that gathers data on individuals as they are without altering or influencing the experimental units or subjects. So in an observation, we just observe them in their natural state. In an experiment, this is a study that gathers data on individuals by actively doing something to the experimental units. There's a treatment that will be given to them, you will observe, and then you will measure the response. Lurking variables, those are variables that can falsely identify a relationship between variables, or it can hide the true relationship. So the effect of diet and exercise on a person's blood pressure has lurking variables that also affect blood pressure. For example, if a person smokes or if the person has high stress levels or low stress levels, then that can also affect their blood pressure. But these are lurking in the background. Confounding variables are those that affect a response variable. They can't be distinguished from each other. So the example here is that a store's special promotion may increase video rentals, but the marketing folks cannot be sure that this is what did it, if it was that discount promotion or if the weather was particularly bad during that trial period. So these two variables are so closely related to this response that we can't really distinguish between which one actually was the cause for this particular response. When we look at the treatment, a treatment is a combination of explanatory variables called factors that are imposed on the experimental units. The experimental units are the subjects that, if they are human, these are the units that the treatments are given to in order to measure their response. If they are human experimental units, then they are known as subjects. Everybody else is known as an experimental unit. And when we give a treatment, the treatment has different factors and levels. The factors are the different parts of the treatments given to the subjects, and each of those factors will have a level. So for example, I could give a study for some chubby dogs, and I could say chubby dog possibilities are exercise and diet. And I'm going to offer 2 exercise plans, and I'm going to offer 2 diet plans. So the factors are the exercise and the diet, and the levels would be 2 for each one. So I'd have a level exercise A1 and A2, and I'd have a diet plan B1 and B2, and then I would put those together to make different treatments. So I could call it A1 B1, A2 B1, A1 B2, and A2 B2. So I could have lots of different types of things going on here. We're going to take a look at a few more things. A study of child care enrolled 364 infants and followed them through their 16th year in school. Later, the researchers published an article in which they had stated that the more time children spent in child care from birth to age 4.5, the more adults tended to rate them, both at age 4.5 and at kindergarten, as less likely to get along with others, as more assertive, as disobedient, as aggressive. So is this an observational study or an experiment? So the question that you have to ask yourself is there something being imposed on them that will affect the response? And it feels like here they were just looking at children who were enrolled in daycare or childcare. And so this would be an observational study because nothing was imposed on them. They just observed them in their time spent in childcare. The explanatory and response variables are, the explanatory variable would be that the students were in childcare for more or less time, and the response would be the rating that the adults tended to give them if they were in that child care. So the next question is, does the study show that child care causes children to be more aggressive? And anytime you have an observational study, we can't really look at a cause and effect scenario because we did not have a controlled experiment. We did not give anything that would create something that would allow us to say, absolutely, this is why it happened. If we look at the way the children were set up into child care, it's a possibility that the children who spent more time in child care have less time with their parents and get less instruction about proper behavior. So that could be one of the issues. Again, we did not do anything to impose a treatment. We just looked at what was happening in the study. And then we're going to look at number 16 as well. An educator wants to compare the effectiveness of computer software for teaching biology with that of a textbook presentation. She gives a biology pretest to each of the group of high school juniors and then randomly divides them into 2 groups. One group uses the computer and the other studies the text. At the end of the year, she tests all of the students again and compares the increase in biology test scores to each group. And what do we look at in the case of this problem? So is this an observational study or an experiment? And we want to know if the amount of study for one type is more than another. So this would be an experiment simply because the teacher is imposing some kind of, what did she call it? A textbook presentation versus a computer presentation, and looking at the comparison of those 2 things. If the group using the computer has a much higher average increase in test scores than the group using the textbook, what conclusions, if any, could the educator draw? So I want you to think about this one, and this will be what you bring to class. Thank you very much.